Hi guys, welcome to Wilco's Whites channel. I have my first ever guests on from the Leeds United Los Angeles Supporters Club. Colin and Dave, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Sean.
No problem. So, yeah, nice one, Colin. So, Dave, I'll start with you first. How did all this start?
So it all started. It was 2017 started. I moved here December 2016, and when I first moved over, one of my best mates since I was a kid lived here. One of my best mates, Bob, also. So we both grew up in Leeds, and it came at the start of the next season, start of the 2017 season, and I think we kicked off. I think it might have been Burnley or someone, first game of the season. We go down to a pub, and there's just me, Bob, and this guy in who's with his missus, like watching. He's from Burnley or whatever, and there's just this random guy turns up, and he was a Leeds fan. We start chatting. We have a few drinks. We watch the game, and I said to Bob, I was like, in a city like LA. Millions of people. It's weird that there's no Leeds United supporters group.
Yeah.
And we did a bit of looking around, and there was nothing. And there was there's big Man United ones and Liverpool ones and everyone like that. So we decided, a bit like Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams, like if you build it, they'll come. So we're like, what we'll do is we'll suss out a bar and we'll just start going every week, and we'll make a Facebook group and just keep announcing it, and that's where we're going every week, and people will hopefully start showing up.
Yeah.
And we both lived kind of West LA at the time. LA is a massive city, and it kind of sprawls out a lot. So it's a long time to get from one place to the other. So that was something that we had to consider as well, of like, where's going to be the best place for us? And
is it frozen there, Colin?
Where a lot of British people move when they first arrive here. So we were like, oh, well, let's do that, because that's probably going to be the best chance we've got of attracting more Leeds fans. 2017, it was the Thomas Christiansen days. The prospect of us, like, I think we thought at the time attracting like homegrown international, support for Leeds at the time might be a bit slim. So that's where we decided to kind of concentrate it. And then that was all blown out of the water when the first three people we had through the door, one was Armenian, one was South African, and the other one was from Pakistan. So, all right. So then, like, kind of, we started getting more people that were like, moved over from Leeds, and we kind of started growing. And then COVID happened, so that shut everything down. And then the actual bar that we used to go and watch all the games in, that ended up like going out of business during COVID.
Really? Right.
We had to look for kind of somewhere new. And then things like all came together at the same time, in the terms of like, lockdowns were ended. We found a new bar. We'd got promoted by that time.
Yeah.
There was the whole like kind of 49ers thing. And we went through that, I think, not so much now, but we went through a brief period of where people were calling Leeds America's club, because we had Jesse Marsh in charge, we had the 49ers, we had, all those, American players on the roster. And I think that raised our profile a bit in the US. But obviously, since then, it's kind of been up and down. But we found a new place now that we've been at for the last year, a place called O'Brien's. And one thing that we've found is to be really important is to have whoever it is that owns the boozer that you're going to be really on board with you, and he looks after us, and, he does a cracking job. And I don't think, we definitely couldn't do what we do without the amount of effort that Willie puts into it, so he's much of a member of our group, just, as anyone else.
Wow. So how many members is there in the group?
Well, it's one of those things where if you look like kind of on the books in terms of like, how many people do we have that have like become members or whatever, we're probably looking at about 50, 60 people.
Wow.
But
that's good, isn't it?
We have like a rotating attendance, if you know what I mean. It's generally turning up for a match day. It is I'd probably say average of about like kind of, 20 people will show up. But, some weeks that's 30, 40, playoff final, the place was absolutely packed to the rafters.
Wow. Are you part of the Leeds United Americas then?
So, yeah, where the Leeds United Americas is like kind of the umbrella.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
That covers all the supporters group. Now,
is that throughout America then?
Yeah, so that's like all of America, and it covers like I think they cover like the Canadian groups as well, and like there's a few South American groups that they cover as well. And I think Leeds United Americans started, a long time ago with a guy, Mike Bellwood, in the days of like he was getting his man to record the highlights on VHS and post them over to America where he lived, and he was copying them and then sending them out to other Leeds fans because at the time that was the only time, the only chance you got to watch Leeds, and things have changed now with streaming. But
so I've got a picture of O'Brien's.
Oh, you have? There we are.
who's the guy with the blue hoodie?
The blue hoodie. Yeah. Well, that's Will Ferrell.
How did that come about?
Well, he's an investor in the club.
Obviously,
So, and he's an investor in the club. He's obviously got like a vested interest, and he decided kind of where LA is where these people are based, and he's popped down for the occasional game.
Is he regular at games or just?
I mean, I'm not going to go as far as say regular, but yeah, he pops in now and again, and it's just, he's just like anyone else. Just, it's not like he's coming in and doing like a tight 15-minute set or anything like that. He's just coming in like anyone else sitting at the bar watching the game.
Does he buy the drink?
It's not like anyone's asked him to put his hand in the pocket for the full round yet. No.
He's my all-time favourite actor, I've got to tell you.
Oh, he is.
He is my all-time favourite actor. So, Colin, how did you get into all this then with Leeds United? Obviously, was it through the group?
No, I became a fan probably 4 or 5 years ago. Before we had all the Americans and all that ordeal.
Right.
I was actually at college. I'm from Indiana, so I was at Purdue University in Indiana, and I wasn't really into football. I'd never played it. It wasn't a big thing in Indiana, and I was starting to get into it with some of my friends, and I wanted a club to cheer for. And I had a professor at school that I was really close with, had a lot of classes with him, and he was British, and he'd come in always talking about the football scores, and no one had a clue what he was talking about. And so I talked to him one day and I said, I'm getting more into it. I want to get into a team to follow. What's your suggestion? Who's your team? And he just sent me, a book about, he's from Leeds, and he's like, I will live and die with this team. And, he told me the whole history. We were, a giant in Europe. We've been relegated 16 years, and they had just been promoted. I think this was a season after promotion. So he's like, we have this amazing coach. The style of play is great, all this and all that. And he told me, he said, look up the club, watch the Bielsa, Take Us Home Leeds United documentary. And I did that, and I was hooked. And so that's when I became a fan. And specifically with the LA group, I had been out in LA for about a year. And then I kind of, same thing as Dave. I was like, every British person or UK person I talked to was like, Leeds is, a big club, a proper club. And, it's a one city club. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, if this is a one city club and, as big as they say, I was like, this is LA, there's gotta be a group out here or something. So I looked them up on Twitter at the time. Yeah. And I found them. I saw that they met at O'Brien's, and I just showed up one day, and that's how I got into it all.
That's great. No, I absolutely love that. Honestly, and like you said, that the thing that it's a one city club is so attractive to a lot of people. I mean, worldwide we have a massive fan base, and obviously we haven't had since Bielsa. Obviously, things haven't been fantastic. Dave, I'll touch on you. How are you liking it so far? Now we've got the 49ers involved. We've got a good manager now in Fark. How are you seeing things now with Leeds United?
I mean, I've got to be honest with you. I was slightly apprehensive at the beginning of this season, all right, because I think like the business that we did, I felt
was that because of the disappointment of last season?
I mean, not so much because the disappointment for last season. You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I think I went into that playoff final knowing how it was going to end up. You know, I just think they were a stronger side at the time. And I think we'd just missed out on securing that automatic spot. And it seemed like the back end of last season, no one wanted that automatic spot. Everyone was doing the best to like throw it away towards the back end of the season. And, you know, just the way it shook out that we ended up in the playoffs. And, you know, as a Leeds fan, you know our history in the playoffs. And, you know, my heart was kind of sinking and I wasn't overly confident about it. And the business that we did towards the back end of last season and the start of this season, I think I was asking myself the question of, we came up short last year and we are a weaker squad this year than what we were last year when we came out short, you know, when we came up short. Okay. So I was a little bit, you know, or more than a little bit apprehensive because I was thinking, well, we're a weaker side and we're expecting to do better than what we did last year. But I think looking at it, it's a weaker league, I think, this year than what it was last year. I don't think there's as many strong sides. And I think that's been shown in our performances. You know, I know we dipped out to Burnley, but we looked good again. Well, not so much we looked good, but they didn't look brilliant against us. I think that, you know, that fixture came just a little too early for us. I think if it had been later in the season, we'd have had it. That 3 points from that. I think, you know, when we played Burnley, we'd still got a lot of new players in through the door, and it was getting them settled with the system, you know, getting them up to speed. And I think since then, you know, we had that, you know, there was the whatever it was, or whatever we're going to call it at the end of the Sunderland game, you know, that we walked away with a point instead of 3 points, walked away with the 3 points against Sheffield. You know, we're playing top teams. We're looking good and we're getting results out of them. And even going back to Sunderland, I think if people had have offered me a point before kickoff, I'd have been tempted to take it at Sunderland. But it felt like a loss at the time.
No, obviously it was a mistake from Melier, wasn't it? So that cost us the 3 points. Yeah. But touching back on the squad, I mean, obviously I know we lost some big players in the summer. But for me, overall, we have a better squad.
Depth-wise, yeah.
Colin, I don't know if you agree with that. Looking at the team from this season to last season, I mean, for me, we relied on Rutter and Somerville a lot last season. Where this season, Colin, I don't know what you think. We've got a better squad.
Yeah, I think definitely you guys touched on it. The depth, I think, is the big thing, and I think you're gonna see it play obviously with these injuries. That, you know, we have some guys out the next few months and next weeks. I think a lot of guys are going to step up and maybe be put in different positions, but that's definitely something last year I think that hurt us down the stretch is, you know, we'd get to that point where maybe the tactic was just to boot it out to Somerville and see if he could get a goal. And, you know, it clearly didn't work down the stretch. So, I mean, the depth is much better this year. And it's tough when you're in this position because the squad, you know, just gets overtured every season. It seems like you get a new bunch of guys in, a new bunch of guys out. So definitely, I think it'll be interesting with the injuries here, how new guys play.
And it's like what Dave touched on with the new players. I mean, we look at the players that's coming with obviously Tanaka. We've got Rothwell, Ramazani, Solomon. Then we've got Brendan Aronson who came back. Even Matteo Joseph, who didn't really play last year. So you could say we've got an absolutely brand new, apart from Willie Nonto, front line.
I think that's, you know, that's one of the elements when I said at the start of the season, I'm thinking like, oh, we've got a much weaker squad because, and I think I'm still stuck in that, you know, I've still got a bit of that dinosaur mentality of like, oh, we need a big lump midfielder who, you know, who's got like years of championship experience, who's grizzled, who's going to kick us back into the Premiership. But, you know, I think the game and the Championship is probably, you know, changed since those days. And the players that have coming in, they weren't big names and they weren't like, are, automatically recognizable as having that experience, but they've done amazing so far.
Yeah.
They've really been, showing up for us. And Ramazani especially, that's why I'm a little bit gutted about this injury that he's got. It seemed his trajectory was really kicking up.
Have you heard the news about him today?
Yeah, 4 to 6 weeks, they reckon.
Yeah, out for 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, that's mad. It's
a real blow.
He was playing really well as well, wasn't he? I mean, I really like the guy. I mean, some of us, the fans, were saying he will be better than Somerville. So that's big boots to fill. But yeah, it's a big blow. But obviously now we've got players coming back from injury. How do you feel like Solomon and Dan James are going to do?
I mean, well, one thing that I was disappointed about, and again, like kind of being out here, is I've not been able to find anywhere to watch like a decent lump of the Watford highlights. I can only find on YouTube like a 2-minute thing because I was working at the time, so I didn't get to watch the game. But
Colin, did you get to watch it?
Yeah, I watched Watford.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave, it wasn't the best, was it, Colin?
No, it wasn't, and I mean, we should have just put the game to bed. I mean,
how did Aronson look? Because obviously he played on the Friday before, and he didn't really do much. But he just played an international game. He's flown back across the Atlantic, and he's playing a Friday night game. But from that like kind of little bit of highlight that I saw, he was just so cool the way that he took that finish and embedded it in the back of the net. I mean, how was his performance over the rest of the game?
Yeah, I was going to touch on Brendan Aronson, obviously, with him being American and all that, but I think he's been fine. I mean, he does not stop running. The guy's got so much energy. Now I know for the US national team, he's been getting a bit of stick. Is that right? Is that correct?
It's a lot of people. I think the problem is they don't know where to play him. Half the time he's playing in different positions for the US team and a different position in Leeds. And he does get a lot of flack, it seems like.
I think he's doing really well at it for us. I mean, I love how he presses and he doesn't give the opposition a minute on the ball. And we've got to remember, he's only a young guy. He's, what is he, 24, 25, something like that. He's still only young. Yeah, he's only young.
I mean, I think like my only kind of issue with Aronson is I think he does get like kind of muscled off the ball a little too easily. He's just, but like I say, he's a young guy. I know he's put like a bit more weight on this season. It seems to be he is a little stronger on the ball this season than he was last season.
What I've noticed about him as well is he tries to rush a lot of things. He tries to do things at 100 miles an hour. Maybe just needs to just slow down a little bit, take his time now again, and then that'll.
But that might come with like the added confidence that he's got of getting a good run of games. That's
experience as well. That's experience as well. And like I say, he's only young. So, but no, my feeling is I've been really happy with Aronson, and even against Watford, I thought he was fine, and he played played all the game. So, and obviously Daniel Farke really likes him.
Well, to be fair, also, we, as much as we love Jorginho, he had a tough time putting the ball in the net half the time. And I know the season's early, but Aronson a couple of times he's gotten a couple goals and assists already, and it's like sometimes we just need to put it in the net. Just need someone to do that in that spot.
Yeah, I mean,
that would kind of changing tack slightly. I would say that would be my criticism of Nonso at the moment, where quite often he does seem to take that one extra touch too much, when he could just quite easily lay it off to someone else and bury it, and he's trying to do it himself. And
yeah, it can be frustrating that way, can Willie Nonso, definitely. Let's touch on the 49ers. Obviously, how was your feelings with the 49ers? Me personally, I think it's the best thing that's ever happened to Leeds United with these owners.
I think there's from my point of view, there's the people like the 49ers, and it's like if you look at like what the Fenway Group did at Liverpool, these people know how to run a sports business, right? Yeah. And whether you like it or not, that's the business that we're in now, and that's the game. I think there was, I used to kind of bristle a lot at some of the comments that we used to get in our WhatsApp group, because there's quite a lot of people that kind of felt that like, oh, there was all this American influence and they were trying to, change us into something that we weren't. And it's like, well, frankly, we've got to change, because the game itself has changed. And, if you're not generating the revenue, you're not going to compete, and these, the 49ers group are professional, these people know how to make a sports business. Yeah. And all right, yeah, fine. If you don't like it, that's one thing. But you want to go back to the days of Chelino and, a load of clowns running the show and Ken Bates. We've had some disastrous owners over our time. And, these are probably been the best people we've had in a long time. So,
Colin, Chelino.
Yeah.
Colin, do you remember Chelino?
I know, but I hear a lot about it, especially on podcasts and people talking about it.
Crazy Italian owner, honestly.
Yeah.
He sacked a manager and then hired him again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to mention the Dave Ockaday saga. We always say, like, if you're a manager of a semi-professional club, imagine one day you might meet a mad Italian owner in a hotel, and then you get offered the Leeds job.
You might as well have hired either me or you, Dave. Or,
Exactly.
Honestly, that were crazy times. But yeah, anyway, things are looking good. We've got obviously the development of the stadium coming, which is fantastic news. To a 53,000 seater stadium. Now, us as Leeds fans, we're a little bit worried it might affect the atmosphere at Ellen Road. Obviously, you've been to Ellen Road, Dave, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
What's your views on Ellen Road?
Well, do you know, it's actually it was a mate of mine, Jimmy, who Jimmy's one of he does like the Leeds United Americas podcast, and he made a really good point on the LU Americas podcast a couple of weeks ago, where he compared like Ellen Road to Candlestick Park. Now, Candlestick Park was an old stadium, in football days of the 49ers, and it was, the toilets were disgusting, it was crumbling, but it had soul and it had atmosphere. And I think that's the position that we're in with Ellen Road at the moment. It's long been regarded as one of the best atmospheres in any division, of British football. And it's always a hard balancing act, I think, for especially if you're talking like, brand new stadiums, how do you recreate that? But I think one thing and I may be very biased about this, but I'd be interested to we've never spoke about this, Colin, but I think one of the things that draws me to the club of Leeds, I mean, I was born there, I had no choice, but, that's just the way it was. But I think one of the things that keeps me coming back, because even though I was born and I grew up in Leeds, I actually spent most of my life in Manchester, and then I moved over here, but I've always been a Leeds fan. And I think that's because maybe it's something to do with a one club city or whatever, but Leeds for me is more than just being a fan and wanting your team to go well. There's so much other stuff that's connected to it, and it's like it's almost like part of my personal culture. You got the history, you got the stories, and that's why we wanted to create a fans group here in LA, because like with any culture, it's best when shared amongst other people, and there's so much, it's so much better watching a game with other people that you're connected to in a large group than it is just watching and, on your own. And I think like Leeds are just around the actual sport itself has a great culture. And like looking back in it, it's been the most enduring culture of my life, but through Northern Soul and rave and Britpop and all that lot, this has been the constant culture around it. And I think Leeds fans will always take that with them wherever they go. So I don't worry about the atmosphere of expanding the stadium or a new stadium. Leeds fans have always got a long history of making everything their own and being proud of it. And I think we'll do that wherever we go. We could play on, a backfield and we'd still make it ours.
I agree with that, Dave. I think even with the bigger stadium, I think it will just enhance the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I mean, Colin, have you ever been to Ellen Road, Colin?
I haven't. It's been on my bucket list recently, and especially once I heard about the new stadium plans. I want to get over there kind of before it gets changed. But yeah, I was gonna ask you guys what you think, because I'm kind of, as a newer football fan, I'm like partial to these older stadiums like Ellen Road versus kind of the newer ones. But I understand, it's a sport in today's world where you have to develop and you have to keep up. And I was, like you said, Dave, I think it's a balancing act. But I see some of these new stadiums, and it seems like some of them, they just lose their personality. But you made a great point. I think Leeds is a different club with the characteristics of it, and I think it'll be okay.
I mean, if you look at the background on here, I took that photo when I went to the Leeds game. You can see how close you are to the pitch, and it's that togetherness, it's just so amazing. And honestly, Colin, if you can get over before they do the build, please do, because it'd be so memorable for you. It hits me every time I go to a Leeds game. You walk up from the bottom underneath the stands out.
I was just about to say that feeling as you go up to, you come from the bar up to the stand, and
it gets me every time. So yeah, if you can do it, Colin, I'd get over.
Yeah. I mean, it's also.
But that's kind of going back to what I touched on before there, Sean. And it's like, for me, when I spoke about Leeds being a culture more than a club, that was the days when I lived in Leeds, and I had a season ticket. It was the old day. It was the Tommy Wasp beforehand for a few beers, and then it was into town, and then it's the bus from town to the ground, and everyone's singing on the bus, and then you get from the bus, and the atmosphere outside the stadium. You go into the bar's like kicking off, it's jumping, everyone's singing up to the stands, and it's that whole thing around it. It's not just like kind of going in, taking your seat and watching the game. And I think we'll take that anywhere.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the fact that they're building the stadium over the original is fantastic. I mean, over the years, there's been mentions of actually selling and moving and relocating, which obviously, Colin, you've come to a mad fan base. There would have been absolute uproar if we'd have moved from Ellen Road. Honestly. So, where do you think we're going to be in years to come? I
mean, you go first, Colin.
Go on, Colin. I'll let you go first.
I'll tell you what, that's a good question. It's interesting. Now, I mean, we've talked about it. I think this team, at least from like kind of the 49ers, and you talk about like Will Ferrell and some of these backers, I think the things are in place, especially, I mean, whether we like it or not, the Red Bull sponsorship as well. I mean, for as far as a championship club goes, I think we are in the perfect position. I think, any other team would kill for the backing and the sponsorships that we have.
Yep. So
if we do things right, I mean, we should go back up, hopefully this year. And then it's, you have to bring in the right players and do the right things. But as far as the backing, sponsorships, I think we are lucky and fortunate to be in a good position. So I think the foundation is there. That's what I'll say.
That's a great answer, Colin.
I think that's a very good point, Colin, because, if you look at, the teams that went up last year, like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, you got to have money to compete in the Premiership. You got to have a ridiculous amount of funds just to even remain competitive enough to stay in the Premiership. Now, you look at like those clubs that went up last year, like, Ipswich, people like that, they haven't got that amount of financial backing, and I think they're gonna struggle. Whereas you look at like the 49ers group that came in first of all, and then that's brought in other investors groups like, the Ackley group, Will Ferrell, all these people that are like willing to invest, and that attracts other people. to the club. Like you said, Cole, the Red Bull sponsorship. I know a lot of people weren't overly chirpy about Red Bull because if it were now going to be like, RB Leeds or whatever. But to have a global like kind of sponsor at that stage, it just attracts attention and more back into your club. And that, that you got to have that now, or, whether you like it or not. And, don't get me wrong, I romanticize about the days where football wasn't so awash with money, and it wasn't, you didn't need a, oil daddy to come and invest in your club to be successful. But, that's just the way the sport is now. And I'd much rather have these investors that we've got, like the 49ers group, than some of the, morally dubious investors, shall we say, that are whose money's awash at other clubs.
No, I totally agree, and I can only go off the previous owners that we've had.
Yeah,
and looking at how badly they did, especially in the Premier League, not supporting Bielsa and so forth. For me, I can only go off that, and obviously we touched on. There's been Ken Bates and all that over the years. It's been an absolute nightmare with the owners. And like I said, it's the first time I've ever felt we've got an absolutely fantastic base. We've got a fantastic ownership, and I think they will do the best for us as a club and as a fan base. And I'm so excited for the next few years. We just need to get back into that Premier League and obviously establish ourselves there. I just want to touch on Daniel Farke and your feelings towards him. I know there's mixed views through the fan base regarding him. Colin, I'll go to you. How do you feel about him?
I don't know if I'm as out on him as I know a lot of people aren't a big fan, but to be fair, you got to look at what he's done, and he did get us to, what should have been automatic promotion and then to a playoff final. And so how much can you put on him?
Yep.
And I think his tactics do get questioned, which I think is fair. But at this, maybe if we go up, that's a conversation for then, if his tactics can do that at a higher level. But I think for the championship, I think, again, a lot of clubs would take him. And I think he's got enough to get us out. And that's what I'll say for, I think, the championship.
Dave?
I mean, I think we've all questioned him at some stages, but like you said, Cole, the results speak for themselves. Last year's points total, normally, if we'd have got those points with any, normally that's a lock-in for automatic promotion. With that amount of points that we had, it ended up in the playoffs. So we were certainly getting the results and getting the points. I think the only criticism I'd have of Farke is, sometimes I feel like he leaves it too late to make his changes to affect the course of the game. But, he blew my argument out of the water against Chef. He made those he made those changes at like 65 minutes or whatever it was, and inspired change. They changed, held the game as it was for us. So. I always, can sometimes question his decisions, but then, like you say, who am I to be? We all do it, but I'm sitting there watching a screen, questioning the decisions of a coach that's been doing it his entire life. What do I know?
That's it. But we've obviously got injuries to Ampadu and Gruev long term. And obviously Daniel Farke has been then forced into playing Tanaka and Rothwell together, because obviously that's the only the players we've got, and obviously they've been fantastic since they've come in. Do you think they would have played if Ampadu and Gruev had been fit? Would have Daniel Farke stuck to his normal squad, do you think?
I think they would have got a look in, but it would have been it'd have been a progression more over the season, of like they'd got the last 10 minutes, and then they'd have maybe got the occasional game here and there. Yeah. But but that's what makes your team. When you have these injuries and your reserve players or your fellas that are normally on the bench, they have to step up, and it's that's when it comes down to, do they step up or do they not quite meet the grade? And we couldn't ask for anything more out of those lads, I don't think, at the moment.
No, they've been fantastic, haven't they?
Yeah.
I just want to go back to O'Brien's. So, what atmosphere is it? What's it like? How do you make it, Dave? A fantastic atmosphere for a game day.
I mean, it's just down to
tunes playing.
Do I what? Sorry.
You have the marching on together. Do you have all that playing?
We don't actually, because it's like literally as soon as we get there, the place is just opening up because it's 7 a.m. And don't get me. And sometimes we're down there for like 4:30 kickoffs as well. Willie's opened up at 4 a.m. for us.
Do you have to be a bit quieter?
So it's a residential area, and we're still waking up ourselves. But it's like anything, how it goes. It's the same as being at a ground or being at any other pub. It's how the game's going that affects the atmosphere as well. If it's going well, everyone's happy, everyone's singing. It's a great atmosphere. When we're tense or when when it's going badly, things can take a dip. But it's going back to it again. It's very important, I think, to have no matter what team you're a part of. When you're here in LA and you're asking places to open at 7 a.m. and you're asking a lot of people to show up at 7 a.m, if you don't have the full backing of the people that work in that bar, it's going to be difficult for you. And like I say, we couldn't ask for more of Willie. He puts a lot into it himself. He's always, on the social medias himself. He's down there opening up early. He's at work in the bar for us. And but yeah, it's like any place. It's what you make it,
I love that. That's great. Yeah, it's the people that make it, isn't it? It doesn't matter where you are. Yeah, no, I love that.
And one of the things that we've always wanted with that, and then another reason of why we set the club up is LA's a city where people move from all over the country, all over the world to be here. And often those people can move here, they start a job and they don't know anyone. And we were like, well, let's set something up, because at least if you don't know anyone, but you're a Leeds fan, you can come down, and we try and be really welcoming to like anyone that comes in through the door, and it's, and really, we try and be like a very cohesive group, we're a very friendly outfit. If you walk in wearing a Leeds top, you're going to get stopped by one of us, and they're going to have, what's your name? How long you been here? And a chat, and, try and really welcome you to the group. And I think that's what creates a good atmosphere as well.
A thing about being in LA too is you kind of touched on it. You get people that, are just there for a vacation 1 week, or you get people that, like this past week, I think we had people there for a honeymoon to watch the Leeds game. The week before, Dave, we had that guy who was going out on a cruise the next day there. The week before that, we had a couple that was traveling the US from New Zealand that were Leeds fans. So it's like every other week too, you're getting people that are just like in LA for business or in LA for vacation or this and that. And it's nice for them to have a place that they can come to watch Leeds as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's true. I think anywhere you go abroad on holiday, especially me, the first thing I'll do is check out the bars that I've got the games on.
Yeah.
I'm already
that's we've come a long way with that with football in the US, but when I spoke about those early days of setting the supporters group up, it was the days where the only way to watch a game was to get it on LUTV, plug your laptop into the TV that was in the corner of the bar, and that's how you watch the game. But pretty much now the profile of the games and the profile of the club, that you can pretty much go on like any streaming service, and get a game live.
So Leeds United are on quite a lot in the US, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we can pretty much watch every game.
Yeah, fantastic. That's good. So obviously we've got a game tomorrow, Bristol City. How do you think we're going to do?
I mean, I'm confident in getting the result.
Yeah.
Away from home, I think we're playing well. It's going to be, it depends what squad. I've not seen the squad yet that he's putting out. if it's
I'll
even
probably out till
yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah, but no, I'm fully confident in getting a result tomorrow. I think we're playing well. We're on a good roll. The players have got a lot of confidence behind them. Yeah.
Score prediction?
2-0 Leeds.
Yeah, I said 2-0.
Yeah.
Colin?
I was gonna say the same thing. I was gonna say 2-0, but I'll take any win because I'll tell you what, the worst thing is waking up for these 4:30 a.m. games and we lose or we draw or it's a boring game. I hate it, and I go back to bed just ticked at myself that I got up for it.
It's something that my wife always laughs at because I can wake up at like 4 a.m. watch a game. It'll be a 0-0 draw, and she's like that.
Yeah,
that was worth it, wasn't it?
We've got to remember though, this is the championship, and it's there's no easy games. There's no easy games. I thought Watford would be an easy game, and look at that.
Yeah.
2-1, scraping a 2-1. So
we started great guns, apparently. From what I heard, it started amazingly, but it just as it
7
came.
minutes, 2-0 up in 7 minutes. I'm thinking this is going to be 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But we never seem to be able to do it. We keep saying we're going to give somebody a good spanking one of these days. It's going to be 5 or 6-0, but we seem to just take us foot off the gas, which is dangerous, especially in this division. So any plans to come to Leeds? Obviously, Colin, I know it's on your bucket list. Dave, are you planning to come over and see a game this season?
Hopefully, maybe. It depends how this season goes. If it's playoffs, then I'll be over for the playoffs without a doubt.
No, don't want playoffs.
But I think we're looking good for automatically. One thing which I think is important for me at the moment is I got a 6-year-old lad, and the last sort of 2 years he's really started getting into Leeds. And I want to take him, like you said, Cole. I want to get him to Ellen Road before there's any major changes towards the ground, just so he can experience it as I experienced it as a kid.
Yeah. Colin?
Yeah, I got one of my good buddies from back home was actually a big Liverpool fan. So we've actually been in talks about maybe doing a trip and seeing a game at Ellen Road and seeing a game at Anfield. So
that would be fantastic.
I'm working on it. I'm trying to get it done this year, hopefully.
Yeah, that would be fantastic because obviously Anfield is another massive club, and the stadium and atmosphere there would be fantastic. So yeah, no, that'd be a great idea. So obviously, what socials can people find you on, or if they want to check out your site?
So we've got Instagram, which is at Leeds United Los Angeles, and then we've got Twitter or X or whatever it's called these days. Again, Leeds United Los Angeles, and Facebook group as well.
Yes, I've seen you on Facebook. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's great. I think that's it. That's wrapped everything up for me today. I just want to say thank you for coming on. It's been really a pleasure talking to you guys.
Thank you.
And you can now go about your business and enjoy your day.
That's it. There's a full day ahead of us, mate. Yeah. You're about going to bed.
Please let everybody know. I mean, obviously, I'm trying to get support for the channel. So if let your members know about the channel, and
well, we'll do. We'll once it's up as well, we'll put a link on our socials and all that lot.
Yeah, and I'll do the same for you on the description. I'll put a link in for you guys, and yeah, well, hopefully we'll keep in touch and we'll speak again.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we'll see you at Ellen Road, mate.
Thank you, man.
And if you come to Ellen Road, yeah, hit me up. Yeah, I'll be there. I'm already planning on my trip to LA anyway.
All right, excellent.
There you go.
I'm so impulsive. Now I've seen it, I've talked to you guys. That's it. I'm thinking, right, I'm gonna have to try and get over.
Yeah, anytime, mate. Yeah.
Get down to the boozer. All right, okay. Thank you, guys. All right.
Excellent.
Thanks,
All
man.
right, Sean, take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.